This video is an example of the type of content that is included within my coaching membership site. It's called the Wormhole, and it is either a monthly or yearly subscription to weekly educational content and live calls with me across all of the ideas that I like to educate on for both movement, programming, coaching, and a little bit of business sprinkled in as well. So if you're interested in that, I'd highly recommend checking out one of the links down below that takes you to the Wormhole landing page with more information. Or if you're interested in learning more of the concepts that I like to teach around, I'd highly recommend doing the free course that I have available, Think Deeper.
So obviously been chatting about like regaining this overhead position, whether or not you're using breathing drills to regain it or access to it, or doing some sensory stuff like a back to wall shoulder flexion or any of those sort of things. But I think there are some considerations when we think about reaching patterns, and ultimately we're just letting the shoulder blade kind of deliver around the rib cage, and some of the benefits of different loading strategies and different exercises that you could use, and why some of them might be more beneficial for certain outcomes or certain people within certain contexts. So today we're just going to discuss a few that are a little bit more in the overhead reaching position. So ultimately, do you mind just kneeling here? Not with a dumbbell, that'll be fine now. Yep. Ultimately, when we think of a reach, it's the scapula delivering around the rib cage. And if we have like any kind of reach, so this might be your hook lying bench presses and dumbbells and stuff, where we're reaching 90 degrees in front of us, we know that a lot more of that drive from the scapula around the rib cage is going to be more of a protraction dominance. Obviously, as we start to get to something like an incline, this might be like a hook lying incline dumbbell or a machine press or anything like that, we're starting to demand a little bit more of upward rotation. And then obviously like it just becomes this curve of protraction dominance towards upward rotation dominance. And quite often we actually need to get the arm as high as possible, that the mobility of the person and the confidence and control of the person has to get to that position, because unless we're going straight overhead, we're never actually really picking up a lot of this like posterior tilting of the scap and some of that mid-back low trap stuff that we've spoken about. Because in this range here at 90 degrees, it's never needed. Unless you're really going to ER the arm heaps, you're never really going to pick up this low trap feeling in this 90 degree range. You actually need to get overhead to really gain that. So you might be doing a lot of work regaining the position, but until we start to load it, it's just never going to stick and never going to stay. And this is actually one of the reasons why I don't like a single arm landmine. So if you go into the landmine now, Chili hopefully doesn't get her head taken off. Go to the left arm. Yeah, so swap legs. Yep. This is one of the reasons why I don't actually like the landmine for overhead reaching, because in the half kneeling position where most people execute the lift, if you go up into the lift, we're actually not even close to what we need. We could try to pick up the posterior tilt and that with a like that position with a delivery with an ER. So even still, like it doesn't even drive into position. Like it actually is more of a protraction dominant. If you just come back in and just do some reps, it's really just heavily more protraction. We're not getting full upward rotation. So it doesn't tick all of the boxes. Yes, it's a reach. I also don't like the landmine because it's just chronically underloaded. Like most people, they're focusing on so many things at once that it just becomes an unloaded exercise. And over the years, I've actually moved further and further away from using the landmine as a single arm reaching variation for these ideas. I think there's better protraction based reaches, which becomes all of your hook lying benches and dumbbell presses. And this mid-range, I think, is just better loaded with incline machines and incline dumbbells. So the part that we have to actually start to unlock is the actual overhead reach. And the landmine just doesn't tick that box. So what we're going to do today is chat about the half kneeling one-arm dumbbell overhead press. So 10 years ago, this bottoms up sort of idea. Have you ever done these? No. Yeah, good. 10 years ago, and if you go back through some of the old original strength culture, I used to use this because I believed in the narrative that shoulder stability was this trainable outcome. And then you'd end up doing these sort of things. So just go up, just reach overhead. You'd end up just doing these sort of movements where we reach overhead and we're doing this for like quote unquote stability of the shoulder or something like that. But ultimately it's just a completely unloaded exercise that, yeah, it definitely challenges the balance of the hand and the arm and the muscles and all of that, but it's not actually doing any loading and any objective stuff for the training outcomes that we're looking for with clients. So I actually just much prefer to remove that whole idea, because again, it's a narrative, and just go to a half kneeling dumbbell overhead press into this position. And this is where we can actually start to load the movement and get into the top position with all of the benefits of a reach. So we're going to coach some of this stuff today and actually go through this. So the position is just your half kneeling. If you face this way for me. We're looking for a little bit of a tuck, not a posterior tilt, but just a little bit. If you have to hold a glute in this position, I'm fine with that. But again, if we don't, I don't want to over cue like this whole glute drive to hold pelvis. I think there's better muscles to sort of integrate with people. If you find some abs in this position and that little tuck, from here, we're trying to hold this shape to allow the scap to move around, and that becomes the reach. So if you go over into the upward, yep, just go to the top. A couple of other small things to consider in this top position. If we think about low trap and this ER distal driver of the arm, having a little bit of ER in this top position can actually help that. Can you feel that there straight away? Most people though, they will try to get away from this position and they'll end up somewhere like this, which isn't bad. And most of the time I'm not gonna cue too far away from it. But if you really wanna pick up this full reach and this full posterior tilt of the scap, having that little bit of ER into the top position is probably where we want to finish. The final thing, if you go this way now, face this way, the final thing is if you really want to maximize scap delivery, another cue that I like is actually driving the elbow forward in space as we come up. So it becomes like an arc of the arm in space. That can also help that scap delivery if you've got someone that's new to these ideas and feeling these things. So now let's do a couple of sets and just piece all that together. I actually want you to finish with that AR. Can you come back a little bit? Yeah. Actually finish with that AR at the top, all the way up. Doesn't have to be aggressive, but just don't let it move into IR. That's it. Do you feel your abs? Yep. Can you feel this scap delivery? Another little cue that I like is finishing with the armpit. So as you're coming up overhead, actually finishing by lifting the armpit up in space. Fatigued already? Yep. Fatigues. 2 more. Go for it. Let's just see what breaks down here. I can guarantee he's going to extend. He's going to want to extend. You can't get it. There's the extension, and there comes the standard pattern that everyone's going to do, which is a proximal delivery of the arm in space. What fatigued? Everything. Everything, yeah. It's a really challenging exercise, and that's 12.5 kilos. Like this bottoms up press, the demand for this and the rate limiter is simply just holding this thing and balancing this thing. And the narrative is that it's shoulder stability, but it's not. It's just that the exercise itself becomes difficult because you can't coordinate everything to keep this thing overhead. But it's not a trainable quality. It's not something that we want to actually push. Doing this well actually trains the muscles and the reactive process of muscular tension for the demand of the actual exercise. So this is actually where we want to be. And it's a really good exercise to regain that position, and there's plenty of different things that we can think about with the coaching and cueing of that. So hopefully that helps. If you have any questions, drop them down below, and obviously I'll see you next week.
Thanks for making it to the end of the video. Again, if you're interested in the wormhole, I'd highly recommend checking it out. It is my education site. It's my membership site for all of the ideas and the concepts that I like to teach around. I have a heavy focus on detailed movement and programming ideas, with the most important thing being application and how you can actually find confidence in using these things with your clients and getting better outcomes. So if you're interested, please check that out. And again, I also have the free course available if you want to learn more of the governing ideas that I like to think about and educate around for the coaches that come through my services. So highly recommend checking out the free course. Again, links are down below. See you next time.